Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're here with your brother Muhammad Tawheed from Guidance Avenue. I wish all of my brothers and sisters in Islam well, inshallah, and I hope this message and this video reaches you in good health and high iman, bi'idhnillah ta'ala. And all of our brothers and sisters in humanity, inshallah, our Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your Lord guide you towards the truth that is Islam. I bear witness and testify that there is no one, no deity, no tree, no human, no plant, no amulet worthy of worship except our Lord Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I further bear witness and testify that Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is his final prophet and messenger. And Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, peace be upon him, came with the last message from Allah until Yawm al-Qiyamah, day of judgment, which is the Quran and the perfect book that it is. This is going to be a bit of a different kind of video today, inshallah. I'm joined with a very interesting character, and I feel very humbled and appreciative to be in his presence. And this is Ustadh, and what is your name, sir? Abdul Haq al-Ashanti. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Akhi, so this is a new kind of video that we're doing on the channel, the first of many, hopefully, inshallah. And you know, we've got yourself as the first person who we are giving an interview to, inshallah. Now, Akhi, could you please tell us a bit about your background and what brought you into the position that you are in today, inshallah.
Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man yattabihum bi ihsan ila yawm ad-din, amma ba'd. So barakallahu feekum, Muhammad, for this interview and for the respect that you've shown to myself and the brothers in coming down here. This is good. So with regards to myself, I'm 40 years old and I've been Muslim for 23 years. So I became Muslim when I was quite young. I first knew about Islam from my cousin who became Muslim, and a group of them became Muslim at the time in 92. And then it wasn't until a couple of years after that then I embraced Islam. So that's, I moved to London a few years after that. Originally from Oxford, actually.
Is that Oxford Street or Oxford?
Oxford. That's where I'm from, Blackbird Estate. And then I lived in the city, Oxford, in the town. So, and then after some other experiences in life, and then alhamdulillah, came to London. And when I came to London, that was the start when I started university. Yeah, alhamdulillah. So I studied. My main study was African history, and I also studied Arabic. This was at SOAS, School of Oriental and African Studies. So my main interest as well, one of my main interests as well, was the history of Islam in Africa. So I did some research on, a lot of research was at university, history of Islam in Africa. So during that time, when I was young, coming into Islam, getting more sort of, conscious and stuff, as sort of someone of African origin, but born and raised in the West, kind of got a lot of interest in Africa as well, and black issues and so forth. So I used to read a lot of literature at the time. Also I was younger at the time, so you read more, so I used to read a lot of books at the time. Now with regards to some of the issues which I've also been interested in, and something which I noticed upon actually from back then. So we're talking about like mid-90s, around mid-90s time. I used to read a lot of literature, and a lot of the works I used to read, some of the historical works I used to read, and other books I used to read, some authors I found them, they would be quite critical about Islam. Now obviously, like myself, I was younger. A lot of us, we were into hip hop at the time. There's a lot of rappers even at that time, which I don't think people are aware of. That time, a lot of rappers who we used to listen to when we were young. A lot of them were Muslim, or they were either Muslim or they were making references to Islam. So this is something which, even from we're talking about early 90s and so forth. But then, like when we would do some reading into books on history and black history, African history, sometimes there would be issue when Islam would come up. There would be a lot of criticism. There'd be blatant sort of disregard of Islam. So this again has been my interest as well. Further, to do further research, and so I'm saying, so I'd weigh up, look what is being said, and so forth. And this is what I'd say, like a lot of which we're going to get to this in detail. We'll discuss this in detail, and it's probably something that we might want to do in a few sessions as well. So we might not be able to cover everything today.
Inshallah.
It might be something that we can, long term, we can do, start looking at specific topics. So, for example, let me give some examples of some themes which would come up. There'll be themes related to, for example, slavery and Islam. That's something which comes up. This again, that's quite a detailed issue as well. Then there's issues with regards to like how black people are perceived, or the issue of, are black people perceived negatively within Islam and Islamic sources. That's the issue. And then obviously the conflation, for example, between how in Arabic language and culture, we're talking about the sort of pre-medieval period, how the Arabs regarded Africa, black people, and so forth. All of these things come up. So it's not just something. We're not just saying this. This is a issue because they're just reading it because it's like they're pro-black Muslims. No, it's not really about that. These are issues that have come up for years. So we're talking about from as long as I can remember. So we're talking about 25 years. These kind of issues have been going on. There's like recurring issues with regards to Islam, and then people casting aspersions upon Islam due to reference to maybe things which happened historically, which we'll discuss, and also maybe how Muslims are treated. There's another issue as well, which is how, for example, people from African origin, when they embrace Islam, how other communities treat them as well. So that's something which is a problem issue as well. There's interest of Islam in the black community in London, therefore, goes back to the 1970s. Could say mid-70s, 1970s, when the people, like the original founders of Bricks and Mustard, were really active at that time. And obviously, just due to the the dynamic of the area, and also the ethnic makeup of this area. This area is predominantly, it's known as a black area, predominantly Caribbean, Jamaican, and also West African, Nigerian, Ghanaian, and then more recently, then a lot of Somalis, also North Africans, Moroccan, Algerian, Eritreans as well. So others, East Africans as well. So, and obviously, more recently, it's much more diverse. But we're talking about the 70s, 80s, 90s. Obviously, it's predominantly people of African origin
So
gravitate towards this mosque. So as a result of that, we were in a quite unique position, not just in London, but in the country, really.
Well, Jazakallah khair, Akhi. That was a really comprehensive introduction, and this definitely invites us to do possibly a series of videos and topics to cover.
Yeah, I think that'd be good, mashallah, Muhammad.
Yeah, inshallah.
I'll
be very happy. So, and I'm sure you guys as well can involve yourself if you want certain topics covered that maybe the Ustadh hasn't mentioned that he promises to cover with myself. Please do comment in the comment section, and I'll pass your messages on to the Ustadh as well, inshallah. And we'll see if there's anything else that we can push into that gap, inshallah. Akhi, what I would really like to speak to you about today, and this is what a lot of our followers are looking for, inshallah. The brothers and sisters that are there that are looking at the videos and what they actually feel that they require. So I myself and Hamid got together a couple of Sundays ago, and we started giving out a pamphlet that was put together by yourself. So Jazakallah khair for that. We could tell that straight away. Initially it was academically done. I myself, that was the most education, even in just those few pages that I had about Kemetic belief. And I definitely have some questions that I've been itching to ask you today, inshallah, in that regards. So I just wanted to know, Akhi, regarding Kemetic belief, obviously you said, because you've got a background of studying Islam, and obviously Islam Islam in the African world, and with an African understanding, for example, putting these together. and how black Muslims are perceived in today's society, and how they are perceived by other black people possibly as well in the society, stemming back from, for example, the 70s. You've eloquently put together a leaflet that is academically done, and it mentions a lot of interesting stuff to do with Kemetic faith. And there is an initial claim, Akhi, that I'm sure this is probably what motivated you, or at least was one of your motives to putting out this pamphlet, which is actually based upon a book that you've actually put together as well, right? Akhi, could you please tell us a bit about this this pamphlet and this book, inshallah?
Right, first of all, Barakallahu Fikum, the book, something which actually was I first completed it in 1999. So, as I said prior, a lot of these things are not new, some of these claims and so forth. It's just that maybe more recently certain people are starting to, could say, you know, propound them with very loud voices. But they've been there for the last 25 years, nothing really new. You see what I'm saying? So the actual main book is something which, yeah, as I said, put together in 1999. It's actually covering a lot of the themes that I mentioned before.
And do you think, Akhi, that this is something that has now resurfaced, this book of information?
Well, the issues have resurfaced. Okay. Definitely the issues have resurfaced. So the issues have resurfaced. And also, yeah, it's been an issue, you could say, they've become widespread. Now, the book is something, it's unpublished. So it's about 300 pages, unpublished. And what I've been doing over the last, you could say, nearly 20 years now, is adding stuff to it. So since 99 I've been adding stuff to it, adding bits of information to make it, and actually that's actually probably good that I did like a very independent, like just printed off myself at the time, 99, and just giving it out for that at the time. So this is 99, it was being given out as well at the time. But since then, been adding more material to it, more research, connecting more research, other little bits of research, adding it to it, other historical bits of information, adding to it, other benefits from the scholars as well with regards to these issues, adding it to it. So as I said, now it's something which was initially probably 80 pages, it's now 300 pages. So that's something which is something maybe people might find some benefit from.
And the leaflet itself, Akhi, is this a breakdown basically? Is this a summary of the book itself?
No, not at all. That's to be honest, that leaflet was actually something, was, I'd say, a very tiny bit of that is from the book actually.
And this
Afwan. So the majority of the leaflet is all kind of fresh research that I added to it. Why the top, that is an interesting topic is that.
What is the topic, Akhi? What is the name of that leaflet?
Yeah, it's about Tawheed, the Pharaoh Akhenaten, and the Kemet Afrocentrics.
For more information on how to pick up one of these brochures, inshallah, please do contact me at guidanceavenue@gmail.com.
Now, something which I used to read a lot during, as I said, during the 90s, mid-90s and so forth, when in a lot of the writers who were largely more inclined to Afrocentric kind of, sort of Kemet Afrocentric theory and method. A lot of them would say in their works. I mean, some. Let me just make this point. Some historical works that I read, particularly to do with Black history, I'd say really good and really academically written. I wouldn't include them in the same bracket. So, for example, like there are some like works. There's someone called a historian called Van Sertima. He wrote really like detailed, like he's a historian academic, and don't agree with everything, but there's one book which he edited. He edited most of the works. They were academic books, so they have contributions. Some of the contributions would be Afrocentric writers, or who are more prone to Afrocentrism, or some of the most kind of, I'd say, more nuanced, I'd say, historians or writers.
And is this book available for for
No, but
buying in the UK?
That's what I'm saying. No, but he had many. There are many books which he edited
Okay.
to do with like history, black history, which were useful. There's one important one was called Golden Age of the Moor, which he edited, and that's got a lot of papers in there that talks about the Muslims in Spain and the Muslims and the civilization of the Muslims in Spain. Golden Age of the Moor. And he Van Tittema edited that one. That's got really interesting, really good academic papers in there about the civilization that the Muslims brought into Spain and so forth. And like really, it talks about Oxford University and how Oxford University, and many of the universities actually in the West were actually founded. Their main role was to translate material from Arabic into Latin. And that was the main function. A lot of the universities, which were founded like in the 13th century and so forth. So I had really good stuff in there. So someone like his works, I wouldn't include them. But then there were other, I wouldn't include them into that kind of those ones who are critical. But then there were other ones who I'd say a bit more, I could say, overboard and extreme, basically, and more kind of extreme like writers who were of this kind of Afrocentric thought, Kemet kind of Afrocentric thought. And they would argue and say things like they talk about how Islam, for instance, and the monotheistic tradition, it evolved from what the Pharaoh Akhenaten taught and preached.
So unless I'm mistaken, Akhi, so what you're trying to say is that these individuals who compiled this information or promoted it, at the very least, are saying that we derived our understanding of Tawheed, pure Abrahamic monotheism, from their information, beliefs and practices.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And this, not only is this written in their books, which I'm going to discuss further today, but also I remember one time, this is at Hyde Park in about 10 years ago, or maybe even longer, maybe 14, 15 years ago at Hyde Park.
Speaker's Corner you're talking about?
Yeah. I remember at Speaker's Corner, I was there with one of my brothers, Abu Amina, Abdurrahman, Allah preserve him, good brother from Luton. We were there once, and a guy came and he had Afrocentric guy, and he had a book, or no, he had a book, or like a booklet, and he said, "Go." Well, it was pictures like they were like hieroglyphs of people standing in positions like this.
Egyptians.
Yeah, like this. And he goes, "Well," he goes, "Look at that." He goes, "Don't you not pray like this?" No, hold on. Let's have a look at the other pictures. There's pictures of people hands in all other kinds of like ridiculous positions. So what is we going to say? So what are you going to say? Pick that one out and say, oh, that the Muslims have taken it from that. So that's just like an idea of what we're dealing with here. As for regards to Akhenaten and some of I know that there was there's been some reflections upon the leaflet which we put together, and I know that one of the reflections by one of the individuals, I've got his name, Qalam or Kalam or something like that, that he said, and first of all, Qalam or Kalam, I like to I appreciate, because I saw some of his criticisms, and he did it in a very respectful way, and he did it in a very charming way, you know, and he's showed a lot of respect, which we do appreciate. We're all for this. We're all for intelligent discussion and an intelligent reasoning. This is what the Quran teaches. Ta'ala wa la kalimatin sawa baynana wa baynakum. Let's come to a just word, an equal word between us and you, that we should only worship except one God. We're all for this, but we're not for childish and immature insults. If they're going to say the Prophet was this or the Prophet was that, we're not going to listen and really sit with or take any credence from people who speak like that. But if people want to say, bring their evidence why they believe Islam came from another tradition, why they don't believe Islam came from this tradition, why they believe Muhammad, the Prophet is a prophet or not. Yeah, this is how we we can try to discuss, so hopefully we can try and reason with people. But if they're just going to come with abuse and insults and these kind of things, which are sort of from the domain and from the realm of more recalcitrant infants, then this is something which you know, we're not really sort of you know, interested in that. But if people have some kind of evidence they want to put forward, let's see it, let's have a look at it, then we'll assess it, weigh it up.
So is this your invitation, inshallah, to anyone who is making these certain claims to bring the evidence forward, bi'idhnillah ta'ala?
To be honest, let me tell you something, is that the brothers here, the brothers from Brixton who are here regularly will know, like Ibrahim Abdul Karim, and other brothers as well, like the older brothers as well. Many times when we've called people, like say come to them, when they have any like issues about with regards to Islam or with regards to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. We say many times, come, sit down, let's have this. But to this day, I remember there used to be a website called Black Chat. Now this is about, we're talking about now maybe 15 years ago or something. There was a website called Black Chat, and they used to have people who used to go on there. And remember, there was one guy who used to go on called Mansa Musa. That's what he called himself. Because, you know, they hide with fake names, you know, like a bit sort of coward, you know, a bit cowardly. No need for that. No, so if you want to have some kind of evidence, bring it. You don't need to hide yourself. But someone called Mansa Musa, and then he started like cursing Islam. I goes, hold on, but you Mansa Musa, you're calling yourself Mansa Musa. Do you actually realise who he was? He was a great Muslim from Mali in the 14th century, who went from West Africa to doing a Hajj, and it's been recorded, and Allahu Alam if it's correct, but in some of the historical works mention it, that when he went to Hajj, the countries, when he passed through Egypt, he had so much gold with him from Mali that it upset the economy of Egypt at the time. So I said to this guy, you're using the name Mansa Musa, and you're saying stuff about Islam, and you're cursing Islam, and you're saying this and that, but your name's, you got Musa, which is actually, that's the Arabic name for the Prophet Moses. You're aware of that? So other kind of foolish things that he said. So I said to this individual, come, Brixton, we could sit down, just, you know, discuss this. And I think his riposte was something like, well, I think, thanks, but no thanks to that invitation. So we're, you know, it's not for, you know, we're not gonna we're not into beating people over the head to accept our views. Yeah, but if people have any kind of evidence they want to bring, let's bring it. So with regards to this, sorry, Mohammed. So with regards to this, it's something about the leaflet itself. So yeah, well, this is a good point. And another thing, yeah. So with regards to this, the guy Kalam and what he said in his remarks, that yep, thank him. Did it in a very nice way, very respectful way, which you know, we appreciate. However, we're not going to do someone's. I'm not going to do my homework for him, or for anyone. So there's for what I saw he was saying in some of his videos was, oh, but where the Afrocentric writers are not saying this. You're not quoting any. Well, hold on. I made in the first page there was a footnote which is reference to who from the Afrocentric writers have saying this. There are more.
Saying what exactly?
Yeah, he was saying who are affirming that Islam and the monotheistic traditions that they evolved or came from or took from the Pharaoh Akhenaten, who he was the one who preached monotheism. So it was undermining that, and which obviously, as mentioned in the leaflet, clearly Pharaoh Akhenaten, clearly another example just of another Taghut Pharaoh.
Okay. He
called people to worship himself, or called people to worship, go through him, and then to worship him, and then he will worship then the sun god Aten. He will do it. So essentially, and this is something which I think maybe, I'm not sure if people are kind of shocked at this, but there was no, where's the monotheism there? Because there is this thing that there is this notion out there that he was the one who got rid of all of the other deities in Egypt, and then he united the people of Egypt to worship just the one god. Totally unfounded. Totally not true.
After scanning through this brochure, Akhi, as well, there was something that I found to be amazingly profound. I'd never heard of anything like it beforehand. You know, it actually surprised me that I hadn't come across something so disgusting. I don't think I can use another word for it as well. Is it correct to say that they actually have some teachings of the worship of the male private part and of possibly the female private part? And then the second part of this question would be, It also mentions something to do with the fact that the shape of the pyramids was derived from the females, from something. You know, I'll leave it to you, inshallah, to expand on this.
That's a sort of side point, but that has been mentioned by some historians that it represented the male phallus.
What represented it exactly?
Some of the obelisks, for example, that you have in Egypt, and then other things like that. In the case of Akhenaten, that he was portrayed as kind of androgynous, so he was sort of portrayed as with sort of both male and female.
Oh, I see.
But because he was actually worshipped as well.
Right.
Yeah, obviously, to us, he's a Taghut, because he accepted this worship as well. So he was worshipped, and this is how he was portrayed in much of the imagery. So the key issue here is that he did not call people, and this was not something which was actually found in because there's other writers who will say he was the one who spurned monotheism. Now the issue, like what some people may say, is, oh no, but you didn't mention any other Afrocentric writers. Well, no, I did, because I mentioned Melafi Asante, who mentions it. He's key. He's one of the key Kemet Afrocentric writers, and he mentions that in one of his books. I've got some other stuff as well, which we're going to discuss as well, and also Yosef ben Jochannon as well, in his book Black Man of the Nile. He mentions it, so I'm not sure why that was kind of skipped over. I'm not going to do.
So what is it specifically that they mention?
Yeah, so they mention that monotheism. Yeah. The worship of one god, it came from Pharaoh Akhenaten. This is what they say, and it's based upon a misnomer that they probably picked up from. In fact, again, another misnomer that some Afrocentric writers picked up from other European writers, which was that which is a kind of a notion that monotheism came from ancient Egypt and Pharaoh Akhenaten, because he got rid of all the other gods. But he got rid of all the other gods and then put himself as a god. Right. So he got rid of all the other gods and then put himself as a god.
He made himself a Taghut. And for anyone who doesn't understand what the Taghut means, the Taghut is basically someone who transgresses the limits which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has verily given them as creation, and not part of himself as a divine creator.
Yeah, Taghut is based upon in Arabic. For example, to transgress the limits. So, like the Arabs, they say taghal ma.
Yes.
So like the cup of water. And taghal ma, the water. So
the overflowing of the water.
Yeah, like so breaching the limit, breaching the bounds. So it's to transgress the bounds, accepting worship for himself, calling people to worship himself, being pleased with people to worship himself. All of these attributes, all of these conditions, such a person is regarded as a Taghut.
So basically, Akhi, just to break it down, inshallah. So anyone who worships anything besides the one Creator, what crime are they verily promoting now?
Well, this is the worst sin, which is shirk.
Okay. And what does shirk mean, bro?
Clearly, associating to associate another deity with the worship of Allah. That's clearly what they've done here. Okay. It's a worse sin.
Now, brother, you know.
Indeed, Allah does not forgive anyone who associates partners with Him, but He forgives anything less than that to whomsoever He wills. No. So this is the worst sin. So how can someone who calls who they said, he got rid of all of the other deities, and he got all of Egypt to worship under one God. This is what some the Kemet writers have said. I'm not talking about people who are just going to Hyde Park in the last 3 or 4 years. We're talking about people who've written on this. We've got their books. We're going to mention the quotes. We've got further quotes. This is why it's actually useful. This criticism from this Kalam individual. It was actually quite useful, because actually we actually did further research. We actually found more to corroborate the argument. So yeah, thanks for that. But we're not going to do someone's homework for them, which is sometimes what we found over the years is that when we bring criticisms to people, then because they're not sure of it, then they try to, where is that? But we know where it is, because we've researched it, but we're not going to do your homework for you. So I'm saying, so it's like people, they want to do their homework for them. And moreover, as well, is that we've also... Oh, the other thing, yeah, another point, Muhammad, is that some of them will say, oh, look, you're just using writers who are all European or all white.
Yes.
First of all, this Callum, I noticed he's quite quick to point out a lot of fallacious arguments and so forth, logical fallacies and so forth. I've noticed some of his videos he does that, but that in itself is a very kind of crude fallacy. Oh, they're all white. Don't take from. And in fact, they weren't all white anyway. And moreover, some of the people who I quoted in the leaflet, the Afrocentrics are quoting them themselves. So how can you can quote them? You can quote the same people, so you can quote and not say anything. But then, but when we as a Muslim quote the same sources, oh no, we're not taking it all white. But Kemet Afrocentrics. Let me give you an example, Mohammed.
Okay.
Because so this is something from something called Kemet Orthodoxy. It's not Muslims. We didn't put this together. So I'm saying, we didn't put this together. So Kemet Orthodoxy website, quoting a source again, which is one of the same sources which I quoted from.
And what's that, bro?
Kemet Orthodoxy. So this is like this is something which is supposed to be the Orthodox Kemet kind of thing, quoting the same source.
And what is the source? What is it exactly?
One of the historians, Tamara Siuda. So that's just an example. That's just one example.
Right, guys, so as we can see where the red arrow indicates us to look, we can see that the source and author of this document and piece of information is none other than an individual called Tamara Sauda. So now typing this name into Wikipedia, this is what I found about this individual. Okay, so her name is Tamara Sauda. She was born in 1969 and is an American Egyptologist and author. I've put her picture on the right hand side of this image for you, and I've expanded it for you to see that she's not a black lady or not a black man. She is a white lady. We can see a charming white lady. Now check this out, guys. She is actually the founder and current spiritual leader of Kemetic Orthodoxy and the House of Neja Temple. And since July 2000, she is an initiated priestess in Haitian voodoo. We're going to speak a little bit about this further on. Before we do now, just looking down a little bit into the involvement with Kemetic Orthodoxy that this lady has. So Sauda's involvement with the Kemetic religion began in 1989, where she founded Kemetic Orthodoxy in none other than her college dorm room. She reports that she had previously had an experience during a Wiccan initiation ritual in which she was called by the ancient Egyptian deities to revive their worship. That's right, so she was actually called apparently by the Egyptian gods to bring people back to worship them. So after that experience, she left Wicca immediately and began studying and worship in ancient Egyptian religion with friends and students. In 1993, this group of people had grown substantially and gained legal recognition in the state of Illinois as the House of Neja Kemetic Orthodox Temple. In 1999, the House of Neja and the Kemetic Orthodox faith was granted non-profit status by federal government. So now moving down, we learn to see that Sauda actually traveled to Egypt and claims to have undergone coronation rituals to assume the religious title of Nisit. So this is what she's actually called now by her followers, and she refers to herself as Nisit as well in many articles, or Pharaoh. In this capacity, she is considered by her followers to be the vicar of a divine spirit and is recognized by the House of Neja to be the current incarnation of the kingly Ka, or invested spirit of no other than the Egyptian god Horus. As Nisit, Sauda provides spiritual guidance and leadership to the members of Kemetic Orthodoxy. It goes in even more deep now, guys, yeah? Check this out. So Sauda's actually been a member in Haitian voodoo since July 2001, long time. She initiated a lot of magical ceremonies. We can learn about this not only in this Wikipedia article, but on her website. Sauda's own voodoo house is in the lineage of Belflogini. Okay, was based in the Chicago area. She considers voodoo not as her religion, but as a spiritual and magical service in honor of Haitian and Native American ancestors. As a Mambo, she is known as km.t, or by her public initiatory name of Mambo Cheetah Tan. So now we can go over to the website now, and as you can see, you can take a look into a few different articles and statements that she has put out. Right, people, now go into the official Kemetic Orthodoxy website, which is www.km.t. I'm in the About section. If you scroll on one of the tabs on the top that says Kemetic Orthodoxy, select where it says what is Kemetic Orthodoxy, and you can read. I'm reading the third paragraph here. So the Kemetic Orthodox religion is a polytheism, as we know, as they have all of these false gods, meaning that it recognizes many gods and goddesses. In addition, it is a special type of polytheism called a monolatry. This is what they call it. Monolatry is a different concept rather than monotheism, where it is believed God manifests in one form and one form only. La ilaha illallah. Monolatry is a soft polytheism, having a multi-god structure where gods can and do manifest as distinct individuals, just like Tamara, Sauda, as we know, and yet providing the possibility that these gods can be understood in relationship to each other via syncretism, which basically means several gods joining to form a new composite deity, and aspecting, which is gods that appear as other gods. In Kemetic Orthodoxy, full converts give special importance to their parent, god or goddess, or pair of two deities, in fact, as revealed through their rite of parent divination. However, they believe that those are the only deities that exist, nor does that prevent them from honoring any other deities at any time or in any number. Guys, this has been really surprising for me. I hope you guys are taking heed to this knowledge, subhanallah, from claims, subhanallah, of these individuals saying that we derived our tawheed from them. And then, as we've seen, also people that are saying that no, this is not true. However, this is what they bring into in their referencing. This is what they refer back to. You know, they speak of how black man is more superior than white man. Okay, we know through Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's last sermon that an Arab is not superior to a non-Arab, nor is a non-Arab superior to an Arab. A white man is not superior to a black, nor is a black man superior to a white, except by piety and good deeds. Now, subhanallah, this is what we have. This is what we have in front of us. I have you, Kemetic Orthodoxy. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from kufr and shirk in all forms in this world. Ameen. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also help us to expose all of the kufr and shirk that is around us.
Okay, this is very interesting, mashallah.
I
Allahumma
mentioned the
barak.
Kemet Orthodoxy one, yeah? Okay,
It's
next
really
one.
good, man.
Okay, so
I'm really enjoying this one.
with regards to the Kemet Orthodoxy website, then again, another Kemet website, Black History Heroes blog. Again, it's not. I didn't put this together. Again, see what I'm saying? The brothers didn't put this together. Muslims didn't put this together. It's Kemet guys. They put it together. Again, talking. This is a section. They did an article on Pharaoh, Queen Nefertiti, and the rise of Amana.
Right, people, so to find this, please type into your URL web search browser www.blackhistoryheroes.com. You will then subsequently find a smaller insight search engine on the right hand side of the home page. Over here, type in Queen Nefertiti and the rise of Amana, and Amana is spelled A-M-A-R-N-A. So I'm reading from the third paragraph, which is titled Pharaoh Akhenaten's Belief in One God, and this is what it says. Pharaoh Akhenaten, son of Pharaoh Amenhotep III and Queen Tai, ruled Kemet during its 18th dynasty. Akhenaten developed policies to abolish religious worship practices to multiple god or goddesses. The custom of the nation at the time of Akhenaten's rule was steeped in the tradition of a varied spiritual pantheon. Akhenaten's philosophy of monotheism is arguably said to have influenced the subsequent Judeo-Christian religions. So here we go, is a claim, and this is ironic obviously with all of the shirk that we've seen as well. Here is a claim that they have influenced the subsequent Judeo-Christian religions with monotheistic belief.
So again, he's saying that Akhenaten was monotheistic and it influenced the monotheistic traditions. Again, that's not something that's put together by Muslims. Again, that's something put together by other Kemet writers. And there's more stuff.
Right.
There's much more.
Yeah.
On top of it, as well, which is even more kinds of sort of drives this home even more, is the fact that one of the most ardent and virulent and extreme Kemet Afrocentric writers, his name is Henrik Clarke. He cursed Islam. He used to curse Islam, he used to curse the Prophet, sallam. He used to really despise Islam, and also in a very scornful kind of way as well. So we're going to put this quote up as well. You can put this quote up as well.
So you can find this book online. This is the face of the book, which I've actually taken off a PDF format, which is via Google. If you just type into Google African World Revolution by John Henrik Clarke, you can also purchase this book if you so did wish on Amazon.
So John Henrik Clarke, in his book, Africa, that's Chancellor Williams. Africa World Revolution, African World Revolutions. I've got the book actually. I think my dad had it, because my dad used to read a lot of these books. So my dad had that book. So John Henrik Clarke, in the book, in his own book, he says that Pharaoh Akhenaten was the one who preached and found it out in monotheism. so John Henrik Clarke, who everyone knows. So what are these guys reading? What's this? What are these people saying? No, you don't say that. And this guy's saying. I even saw one video when I think the brother Abdul Hamid is speaking to one this Qalam and someone else. One guy saying that Islam did derive it, and then he's saying that it didn't derive it, and then they're kind of looking at each other like, what's going on? They're confused.
Right, so bro, I've got a question regarding Egypt then, and at the era of Musa, our prophet Moses, peace be upon him, alayhi salatu wassalam. Now, he was in a time of Egypt where they definitely had a lot of idol worship. Magic was prominent as well in this time. Now, this claim that these people with Kemetic belief, they come to claim that we have derived Tawheed and the understanding of Tawheed from them, would it have been in the era of Musa alayhi salam's prophecy, or was it verily before that or after that?
That's interesting about what the question what you said about the time of Musa alayhi salam, and how he was there. There's a lot of magic, as he said, and this is a common feature as well in a lot of ancient Egyptian. There's a link as well. This is actually a good point. There's a link between like this kind of extolling ancient Egyptian mystical and religious practices and magic, and also Freemasonry and so forth. But there's a lot of Freemasonic writers and thinkers. They also have like this like praise. They have this like praise and exaltation of ancient Egypt and a lot of its religious aspects.
I mean, if you look at
a lot of the magic and all of these things, and then calling upon this one, invoking this one, it's quite concerning actually, to be honest. So this is something which it's an interesting theme, how they're always kind of connected with the magic. Now, with the title of again, that's like a good point, because magic is in Islam something which is it's disbelief in Islam, and in Surah Taha, which Surah Taha it contains, which is the 20th chapter of the Quran. Surah Taha talks about the Moses alayhi salam, and all this, how the magicians, how they were with the
قالوا إن هذان لساحران يريدان أن يخرجاكم من أرضكم بسحرهما ويذهبا بطريقتكم المثلى فأجمعوا كيدكم ثم أتوا صفا وقد أفلح اليوم من استعلى قالوا يا موسى إما أن تلقي وإما أن نكون أول من ألقى قال بل ألقوا فإذا حبالهم وعصيهم يخيل إليه من سحرهم أنها تسعى فأوجس في نفسه خيفة موسى قلنا لا تخف إنك أنت الأعلى وألق ما في يمينك تلقف ما صنعوا إنما صنعوا كيد ساحر ولا يفلح الساحر حيث أتى فألقي السحرة سجدا قالوا آمنا برب هارون وموسى.
With regards to the magic aspect and the Prophet Musa, in Surah Taha it mentions لا يفلح الساحر حيث أتى. The magician will never be successful whatever he puts forth, or wherever he is. So magic can no way can that have any kind of, it's totally rejected in Islam. It's totally the complete anathema to Islam. So that in itself shows again how can
we have derived tawheed from them?
well, yeah, not how could we derive tawheed from them, but also how could Musa alayhi salam have any kind of link to that? Because there's also a theory, which there's a book which I read years ago. Again, we're talking about mid-90s. There's a book which claims that the Pharaoh Akhenaten was in fact Musa alayhi salam. This is a theory which is out there, which was originally put out by someone called Ahmed Osman, and he someone called Ahmed Osman he's an Egyptian, and he was the one who came up with this like theory, all kind of crazy theories and complete.
Did he confess to be of a certain religious belief?
No, he hasn't actually. So he hasn't. So it's not. He's got some really odd views, but unfortunately, a lot of people have followed that, and I've heard people today have followed, even people who ascribe to Islam trying to follow that as well. So that's with regards to the aspect. There's and generally though, Muhammad, if we're going back to like the issue of like, because where they're uncomfortable is the whole issue of Islam, how Islam spread, how Islam got into Africa and so forth. Is that there's something interesting. I was saying it to Abdul Hamid the other day, and a couple of other brothers we were discussing it, which was when we were looking at Egypt, the role of Egypt, or the place of Egypt and Islam, is very important, very interesting. And obviously we know that the Muslims, they conquered Egypt. Now this is a good point as well to mention as well, which is like the conquest of Egypt, because some of the Afrocentrics kind of try to make out that the Muslims conquered Egypt and it was like out of animosity, got rid of African culture, got rid of black culture, and so forth. I think again, and I know for a fact people still say this, because I've met so many people still say this. But the thing is, no, Egypt at that time wasn't ruled by the Kemetic, Pharaonic, Afrocentric kind of line anyway. Interesting. It was being run by the Byzantine Empire, who were predominantly white Europeans were running Egypt. They were the ones controlling Egypt. And when the Muslims conquered Egypt, there's a famous incident which is mentioned in the historical books. It's mentioned in Futuh al-Misr, like the conquest of Egypt by Ibn Abd al-Hakam, one of the historians who died in 257 after Hijrah, about the end of the 9th century Christian era. He died. So he wrote a historical book called Futuh al-Misr, and in there he mentions like when the Muslims conquered Egypt, Muqawqis, who was the ruler of Egypt at the time, when he saw a delegation of Muslims went to speak to Muqawqis, who was the ruler of Egypt at the time. And when the delegation approached Muqawqis said to the delegation, they put forward Ubadah ibn as-Samit radiallahu anhu, one of the companions. Now, when the delegation led by Ubadah went to Muqawqis said, "Get that black man away from me." So the Muslims are coming into Egypt. The leader of Egypt, he sees the Muslims and he's saying, "Get these black people away from me." Moreover, and then the delegation, they say, he is from the best of us. He is from the most pious of us. He has preceded us in Islam. Hence he has been put the leader of the delegation. Muqawqis then says, "No, rather he's black. He's supposed to be at the bottom of you." This is the ruler of Egypt at the time, saying this to the Muslims. He's black. He should be at the bottom of you. And then what did the Sahaba say, radiallahu anhu? According to this historical account, they said, "Because we don't have any. The black is not something which is despised among us. Being black is not something which is despised among us." So the Muslims are coming in to take over, reclaim Egypt. And this is why it's said as well that many of the non-Muslims at the time, they wanted the Muslims to come in because they were bringing justice. So the Muslims are coming in to Egypt to reclaim, take over Egypt, and these and the people who ruled Egypt at the time, Muqawqis, he's saying get these black people, and then there's the Muslims telling the people in Egypt, rather being black is not something which is despised among us. And then it's
it's down to Muslims that they are now acceptable, that they accept black skin people.
Well, and this is historical source going back to the 9th century Christian era. Yeah, we're talking about maybe the 3rd century Hijri. And then Muqawqis says, okay, let him come forward, but then if he speaks, let him speak lowly. And Ubadah bin Asami, he says to him, goes, well, you see, it appears that you're scared of me, but I've got 1,000 other men outside who are blacker than me. So this is what this documented.
So to find reference to the full account of this story, please do go to the description box, which is underneath the video, and you will find reference to this, which will take you straight to the webpage, which is titled Conquest of Egypt, Ubadah ibn as-Samit's address to the Egyptian ruler al-Muqawqis. You will also find references to links to the other topics that we have dealt with in this video, inshallah.
So there's a few points, Mohammed, on this point alone.
Yeah.
Is that Egypt at that time, when the Muslims conquered Egypt, wasn't being controlled by Kemet Afrocentric and people who were of the line of Kemet Afrocentrics. Anyway, that kind of Kemet theory wasn't being run by that. That had long gone. That had long been dissipated and taken over by others, the Ptolemies and the Greeks and the Persians and to how it was to the empire which was there at the time when the Muslims took over. To the extent that when the Muslims came there, the Muslims had to then teach the people, or at least teach the ruler of the country
about accepting black-skinned people,
and that black among us. This isn't something which is despised, and that the Muslim armies, that they've got a whole cohort of individuals. There's about over 1,000 people who are, as Abada said,
very interesting indeed,
blacker than him. So this is something which is mentioned. So I think some of these things are not really kind of known about. And then also the issue again about how the early generation of the Sahaba, then radiallahu anhum, and they are our the example that we follow. It's where this is the example that we follow. Look how they regarded, and their example, how they were as people, how they regarded and how they respected Africa, and how they respected black people, and even like this narration, blackness itself again, how it was thing. But so if you look at when the Muslims migrated to Ethiopia, for instance, that again a clear example of how the Muslims regarded Africa. That the Prophet ﷺ, he advised the companions. He said that there's a righteous king there who doesn't oppress anyone. Go there. And also when the Mushrikeen were trying to advise Najashi, send them back. The fact that they went there again to say send them back, it shows the regard that they had. So I'm saying all of these things are very important. So it cannot be said in any way, kind of shape or form that Islam has any kind of you see what I'm saying, anti-black sentiment and stuff. I know that some people tried to bring some people tried to bring certain.
I've got so many questions.
Some people tried to bring people tried to bring some narrations. Some of these narrations are not some of these narrations, which we'll get on another day, we'll discuss that, but some of these narrations are not really racist. Two, some of the narrations again not authentic. Yeah, some of the narrations not even authentic. So I've seen some other guys, Afrocentric guys from America. I don't know all this. I can't remember all of their foolish names. But someone in America, I forgot his name. He did a whole talk about Islam. I think it was called himself Polite or something like that. Did a whole talk about Islam, and he's mentioning all fabricated narrations, not things which are not hadith which are not sound, things are not correct, not even hadith, fabricated. And then another thing, Muhammad. So that's that aspect which we will deal with. Which totally contradicts what the Prophet said. The Prophet said, "Bu'ithtu likulli aswadin wa ahmar." I was sent to every black and red. But then we've had other narrations as well. We find other statements, which they tried to bring. They tried to bring quotes by historians as well. They say, oh, look what Al-Mas'udi said, or look what Ibn Khaldun said. Well, Ibn Khaldun, wasn't necessarily. He's regarded as being a historian and a sociologist. He's not like an alim, a muhaddith or faqih. And even if he was, you don't blindly follow him anyway. Yeah. Even if he was. So he mentioned a lot of statements. He said all kinds of statements, not just about black people anyway. He said stuff about white people. His like thing was to do with how people were close to the sun. People close to the sun, then they're very erratic behaved. They're very lustful. But the people towards the north, they're cold. They have no. So it's not really accepted. And all he said, he didn't accept the a hadith as well with regards to the Mahdi, for instance. So he's not someone who really, Ibn Khaldun is not someone who would take
Akhi, then another thing that I wanted to ask you then, inshallah, was so going down now to Akhenaten himself. Who is this figure? Now you did say that he's someone who's worshipped. Now is he one of a number of pharaohs that are worshipped and are prominent figures in this creedal belief, or is he like their main boss?
He was. So he was regarded as I said before, someone. There was a plethora of other gods worshipped in Egypt. He wanted to get rid of that to kind of have a cult, kind of a different kind of cult, which essentially went through him, to be honest, and his wife as well. So they all had to be. So it was like saying that the people had to worship him, and then he would carry the people's requests to the sun god, and it was still the sun god which was being worshipped anyway. Not the creator. There wasn't the creator of the heavens and the earth who was being worshipped. So I'm saying all of this totally again it shows that there was no like any emphasis on worshipping the creator alone in this.
Right. So you know what this
Allah says in the Quran. لا تسجدوا للشمس ولا للقمر. Don't prostrate to the sun. Neither prostrate to the sun, nor to the moon. Clearly, clearly wipes, pulls the rug from the feet of those people who try to say that Egypt had some kind of monotheism. No, they worship the sun. You see what I'm saying? I think they even had prayers as well, regards to that they pray to the sun and so forth. So there was
which is actually a demonic, satanic part of their worship as well. Some devil worshippers, they actually promote praying to the east, into the eastern direction.
Yeah, good point. Because one aspect as well, which I mentioned briefly. Remember the leaflet as well. It's just a leaflet. I'm not going to mention everything in there. It's just an 8-page leaflet just to get some quick information out there to the people. But the point that you mentioned again is interesting, because the Satanists, they exalt ancient Egypt, and they probably maybe get from that notion actually as well. I mean, a lot of the Satanists.
Yeah, I mean a prominent one of their characters who actually used to speak about the worship towards the east was Aleister Crowley, and Aleister Crowley used to deal with this information a lot, and that also brings us back to the ideology and the link that Freemason belief stems out into one of these sects like
because I noticed when the individual was criticizing the leaflet, is that he was saying stuff like he was reading excerpts of it, but when it came to them sentences, he was like brushing over. Yeah, it's not really impartial. He quickly breezed over it, which I noticed. So long sections he breezed over it, and then he should have took that on board as well. He should deal with that issue as well. It's not something which can necessarily be denied. It's something which is actually present. If you go to many of the high street stores, you find and a very odd and not an odd, but an odd and interesting array of literature, which all try to link to ancient Egypt in some way, and Egypt had this. So there is a link. Definitely between this. No, so I'm not sure why they're trying to either hide away from that point.
Now, bro, one thing that you mentioned earlier, obviously, was about when the Muslims actually came into Egypt, and it was the Egyptian governing ruler at the time that promoted racism and hatred against black-skinned people, such as the Sahaba at the time. Peace and blessings be may the peace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon them. Now, why is it, bro? Because you said that obviously you've done your research as well into the way that black people are perceived in society, and definitely Muslims as well in the society, and maybe people that look upon them as well, and how they look. Now, we are seeing a rise in the amount, or at least in Speaker's Corner where we give da'wah, we see a rise in the amount of black people that claim to have Kemetic belief. I have not once yet, I'm not saying that there isn't, but I have never once met someone who says that they have Kemetic belief that isn't black. And this brings across an ideology of irony in my mind, definitely, because of you know, the information that you earlier put out, the fact that it was Islam that actually brought the tolerance towards black people and eradicate the ideology of racism in Egypt. So could you please expand on this for us, inshallah?
That's a good question, Mohammed. So, essentially, Islam, therefore, what it brought to Egypt was a sense of justice and tolerance. As I said, a lot of the people who weren't Muslim, they were crying for the Muslims to come in. We're talking about this. We're just talking about the conquest, Islamic conquest of Egypt now. We're just talking about that now. That they were calling and beseeching the Muslims to come, because it was just ruled by tyranny at the time. So, and the fact that it was the Muslims which kind of brought this egalitarian notion of, particularly with regards to race now, because we have something clear now with regards to a clear sort of historical source, which documents about the Muslims going into Egypt and so forth. It's something which warrants further research. So we're not sure why people are kind of, there's like a people don't want to. Let me give me an example. Another. This is a side point, but it's relevant. Is that I've seen on in Brixton as well. Even in Brixton, we have not many. There's a few Hebrew Israelites. And I've seen them in some of the ones in America, New York. They do it as well. But they've got like a poster, and they say you are not African, and we are not African. And then they put like pictures of. Like what they did, they put pictures of like some of the tribes you find in like southern Sudan and that kind of region of East and Central Africa. Some of the sort of more sort of uncivilized tribes, Mushrik tribes over there. They put images of these like Mushrik tribes in Africa. Who are doing like quite some things which are you know, practices which are backward, uncivilized.
Could you name a couple?
Well, practices that they're doing. Well, yes, sort of, you know, no clothes on, and other things which I saw. They do like a collage of like images, and they say you are not African, we are not African, and then they put those images on. That's very deceptive, isn't it? Really, it's a bit, you know, that is rather deceptive on their part, because okay, why don't they put pictures of like the ancient universities of Timbuktu and Jenne and Gao on there then, and say you are not African? Also, some of the libraries, the libraries where astronomy was recorded and so forth in Mali, and say you are not African, and some of the civilization which the Muslims brought in Africa, and even say other civilizations as well, which could be found in Africa, the ones which are not Muslim as well. Why don't they put that there and say you are not African? It's very deceptive for them to put specific things and then say you are not, again. So that leading on from that, then we find similar when it comes to Islam. There's people would try to put forward some either statements of people who are not scholars, or they misunderstand certain hadith and other things, and then try to put this out to say that you know, Islam is somehow anti-black and so forth. But what we're going to do, Mohammed, we've compiled a lot of these. I think to be honest, I've actually noticed it online as well. I think there's 2 other brothers, they've actually done this as well, which is good work that they're doing. May Allah reward them with good. That they've got separate websites, and they assess all of these narrations, and they like give like a commentary on not their sort of their own commentary, but they mention what the scholars have said about these hadith, but they also kind of put them in context.
Inshallah, this video will add to it as well.
So there's some brothers who do that, because people try to pick certain sources and they try to misinterpret them and so forth, which is really a weak kind of method to use. Because let's take an ancient Egypt. Slavery was rampant. Ancient Egypt was based upon slavery. See what I'm saying? Whipping people on their backs to death so they can build a pyramid for some Tagut pharaoh,
which represented a female body part, apparently.
Yeah. Whatever it represented, it was oppression of people, and the enslavement of people, and enslavement of in fact all people. Black people, the ancient Egyptians enslaved other black people. They enslaved people from some Syrians, Libyans, other people from Canaan. All of these were enslaved, so for what? So they can build some monuments to the Tagut pharaohs. And this is something which they don't deal with. This is something which they do not deal with, and they have to accept that. This is not something which they can say, and in their society, how slavery was dealt with. But the problem that a lot of the New Age, you could say the New Age Kemet advocates have to deal with, is that they have an issue in terms of their sources. If you're going to hark back to that era and that epoch, there's issues with regards to the sources.
Okay, so bro, I think we've covered quite a lot today, inshallah. Would you like to give a few final words, inshallah, for today's discussion, and then obviously we'll move over to the brothers to see if they would like to entail into a Q&A, inshallah, if there are any questions that you'd like to put forward to the Ustad himself, inshallah ta'ala.
There's no real other points I'd say to add, that except that it's important that a lot of these issues are dealt with, and hopefully, inshallah, maybe we can contribute to putting, this some of the kind of, you could say, the counter arguments out there. That's what I would say. I'd say keep it on that way, because a lot of the things, sometimes issues can get very personal and stuff like that. It's best to put all that to the side and just deal with the issues at hand, and let's try to put out the information, put out the correct perspective, particularly on these issues, and then after that, people please, whatever they want to accept, they accept it. If they're not happy with it, then then they leave it. Exactly. So I was with Barakallahu Fikum, Muhammad, for this. So I don't really feel that I'm fully qualified, but obviously got good thoughts of me, so I award you for that, but I don't feel that I'm fully qualified for that. But if there's any little thing that we can contribute to, then that's good.
And inshallah, this again is a prompt for you guys at home, inshallah. If you do have any questions verily for the Ustad Abdul Haq al-Ashanti over here, please do comment in the comments section, or you can reach out to me on guidanceavenue@gmail.com. So Jazakallah khair, may Allah bless you all for our brothers and sisters watching in and tuning in at home. It definitely provides us with a platform, inshallah, to have such a eloquent and informative discussion. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide those of you who are watching that have not yet accepted the perfection that is Islam and the deen of Allah Azza wa Jal, the Exalted. So we've had a bit of a talk today, Akhi, and it's been an introduction into Islam in Africa and Afrocentric concepts. Inshallah, I would like to ask you, and for our viewers at home, which topics would you feel that we could verily go into in a bit more depth in possibly next episodes, inshallah?
Yeah, I'd say, Muhammad, Barakallahu Fikum, may Allah reward you, Jazakallah khair. Is that what would be good for us to explore for future sessions like this, as we can start looking at racism. Does Islam actually intrinsically, does it teach any kind of racism? Does it teach any kind of anti-black sentiment? That's important. So does Islam teach an anti-black sentiment? also the issue of slavery needs to be explored, and I anticipate that will probably cover a few sessions. There's an important issue with regards to slavery as well, which I'll say that many of the kind of, we could say, a lot of the people of the Afrocentric method, they disregard, or it's something which, you know, they're quite unaware of, which is that, and I've mentioned this in other discussions I've had with other Christians, actually, is that the whole notion of slavery in Islam is important, which does need to be assessed, because there were instances in Islamic history where there was oppression, there was dhulm. Why? Because not because this is something which Islam taught, or something which the Muslim scholars sanctioned, but it's usually due to totally like rejecting, ignoring everything what Islam actually teaches with regards to how to deal with captives of war and so forth, and also issues of slavery. So that needs to be that'd be good for us to discuss that. There are also issues as well, furthermore, with regards to that there were haram practices done. So people are saying that is for slavery, and that's totally haram. Things which happened in history, did happen in history. It was found in history, but it's nothing to do, totally free from the teachings of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Akhi, so there's also, interestingly enough,
furthermore, Muhammad, is that then there's also the issue of how in Islamic history that there were people, slavery wasn't linked to race, so it wasn't just that, which was largely the case when we're looking at the kind of transatlantic experience. But in regards to how it manifested in the Muslim world, it wasn't largely based upon just race. So there were, blonde-haired and blue-eyed Europeans were also taken into slavery. Other Europeans were taken into slavery within Islamic history. All of this we will discuss
Inshallah.
in the future. And then also, and then there's also issues with regards to, like, there's confusion as well with regards to how an Arab is defined as well, and this causes a lot of confusion.
This is what I wanted to ask you, because there is a certain person, and he knows himself very well, and he put out a video recently, just moments before this one, in fact, a few days before this one, and he refers to, first of all, he puts out a comment towards, a derogatory comment towards, as he says, black Muslim converts, and he doesn't think very highly of them at all. But moreover as well, he also refers to them, or he puts down an assumption, presupposition in fact, that they serve under their Arab slave masters, which I think is absolutely absurd and astounding for someone who people may very well listen to. I'm sure they won't take it seriously. I don't know how many people out there have actually got such an amazing belief, but nonetheless, do you think it would be worth speaking basically about the, as you mentioned earlier, about the way black Muslims are looked at, number one, and number two, the way that they are looked at not only by within our communities, but on a whole as well, on a wider perspective as well, inshallah, by other creedal beliefs.
Yeah, definitely, without a fact. I would say it's not necessarily people who hold creedal beliefs, but definitely some people of some Afrocentrics, more extreme, on the more extreme end of certain types of Kemet Afrocentricity. They ascribe to that, and that looks. I mean, some of that is derogatory, kind of really. More pejorative, really, not really worthless. Some of that is not.
So you say that this would ascribe to the person and their character and their
it's quite sort of, as I mentioned before, quite infantile, and just want to use pejorative.
So we shouldn't ascribe it to Kemetic belief itself.
Yeah, I would say that maybe not all of them ascribe to that. This is maybe just a sort of a pejorative individual who probably doesn't really have much, really sort of much knowledge of either African history
or
or Islam, and also he is totally and absolutely devoid of any kind of etiquettes in discussing people. So such sort of individuals, we largely put them to aside, and we'll deal with the core arguments which are at hand. So that is, as you mentioned, that's something which we will look at in future. Inshallah. And what's interesting as well that you mentioned that point, Muhammad, is that a lot of the people who sort of beat their chests and jump up and down, and they sort of like to ascribe to Muslims who are of African origin, of and some of the reverts as well, and saying things to them like, "Oh, you're merely sort of adopting something of the Arabs." It's interesting. I always find this quite an interesting line of argument from people who sort of walking around with sort of all the latest Western and the European attire, and only speaking English 24/7. Can't speak any other languages. Can't speak any other African language. Can't speak any other language. Totally not interested. Just all that can come out their mouth, and all they can articulate is the Queen's English. But don't and these are the same people who sort of think that they can sort of pontificate, have the audacity to think that they can pontificate to black revert Muslims about culture, when evidently their culture is totally white, European, honed kind of culture.
And as you mentioned earlier, even their religious belief, Kemetic belief, actually stems from a people that were actually racist themselves against Africans.
Yeah. Again, good point as well. Excellent point. That there was, there's even there's actually, this is another topic, but it's not really anything really linked to do with Islam. It's more of a racial observation with regards to the ancient Egyptians, that they wouldn't possibly not even actually what we would just describe today as black. Now, when black is used today, it's usually referred to people who are brown, dark brown complexions, and some actually going towards very dark brown in their colour, and there's a strong suggestion that many of the ancient Egyptians didn't even look like that actually, and they were possibly a more kind of more kind of a unique North African kind of light brown complexion, and that's something which is not really, that's an issue for the Afrocentrics to discuss among themselves, but that's something which is definitely prominently out there. You see what I'm saying? And though that there were some of the dynasties, some of the dynasties of ancient Egypt were Nubian, when the Nubians ransacked and took over Egypt. I think like the 26th dynasty, and there were some other ones which were purely from the Nubia. They were Nubians. However, were the ancient Egyptians black as what we refer to as black today? That, to be honest, can be from some cause questionable, particularly like when we're talking about sort of the ethnic makeup of the majority of the inhabitants of Egypt at the time. You see what I'm saying? But that's not really anything to do with that's nothing to do with us, because not everything to do with us is all about race. Everything to do with them is all about race. They can deal with that. But as for us, we will discuss. And as you mentioned, there was a lot of oppression, slavery, taking place in ancient Egypt, tolerated, beating and killing other human beings just to build something for pharaohs who called people to worship them. Called the common people to worship them. So. There are many other topics we can discuss as well. So, like the whole issue of Arab identity. That I also did some research as well in the past about Sudan, because there's a lot of issues took place with regards to the history of Sudan and a lot of dynamics. I'm not sure if they're all totally relevant now, but there are some issues which can also be explored. Also, some other Pan-Africanist and other Afrocentric, more Pan-Africanist, you could say, some Afrocentric writers who praised Islam and respected Islam a lot. So we'll get to all of those.
Well, I think we've definitely beat one of the horses till it's dead, 100%. So anyway, Sheikh, it's been an absolute pleasure to sit here, make your acquaintance, and get all of this interesting information off you regarding Afrocentric history and beliefs. And inshallah, to you guys at home as well, a big thank you from myself and the brother here. And please, if you do have any other questions that you would like for me to pass straight on to the brother, please, you do have my my email address dedicated for you guys, inshallah, and also the comment section below. Also below is the descriptions where you can find all of the references, everything that was covered from the brother here today. So without further ado, I'll leave you guys to, inshallah, to make your own minds up about the information that you've had today. And please do stay tuned in for myself and the brother, inshallah, to address all of these other issues. Again, Akhi, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I leave you to it, inshallah, guys. So until we meet again, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.